The Panthers drop another one that kind of just, well, sums up the 2025-2026 season so far. I want to say that they lost in overtime, but no, this one ended in regulation. What's up, Florida Panthers Daily? I am Andrew Sheridan, back here with you on a Friday. We've made it to another weekend where the Panthers will have two games over the weekend. We will get to that later on in the show. We'll get to our March Madness bracket because last night's game felt like a March Madness game on the ice. And then we'll compare a little teams because South Florida, another team is getting underway. The Miami Marlins opening day is tonight. So we'll compare a little franchise history. Both teams have two championships under their belt. But we'll focus on last night first. Before we get into that, again, the subscribe button below. We go every single day right here on Florida Panthers Daily, Monday through Friday. Part of the Fan Arch community. My social medias are AJ Sheridan Radio. Let's jump in to a little bit about last night's game first before we jump into some of the injury reports that came out of last night, because it wouldn't be a Florida Panthers game in March of 2026 if someone didn't get injured and someone most likely wasn't out for the year. But it was a 3-2 final last night where the Wild would score one in the final seconds of the game to get the win over the Florida Panthers. It was a first period that was dominated, and I mean dominated, by the Minnesota Wild. The shots were so lopsided on what was a 90s night inside Emirates Bank Arena. It felt like maybe a little throwback to what the old Cats were, like not the best teams in the world for 90s night. But the first period was dominated by the Minnesota Wild. But we would get out of that first period with a 0-0 tie thanks to Tarasov, who had 19 saves in the first period. The Panthers only had 6 shots themselves. So it was dominant. The shot attempts, 27-13. It felt like the Wild should have been up a few goals to nothing. But Tarasov kept us in the game. It was cool to see Stanley C., the Panther, in the throwback jerseys because, again, it was throwback night inside Emirates Bank Arena in Sunrise. And then it would get to 1-0 in the second. It would get to 2-0 in the second with just over a minute left. And it kind of felt like, okay, this is kind of what we expected. If you watched our show yesterday on Florida Panthers Daily, because we go every single day, Monday through Friday, right here, part of the Fan Arch community, like, subscribe below. We said Minnesota is a great team on the road. That's what I told you here on Florida Panthers Daily yesterday on Thursday. It was 29-14 shots after 2 periods. And then, well, Matthew Tkachuk, the man I told you was going to show up in this one, got on the scoreboard quick into the third period. Less than a minute into the third period, the hand-eye coordination from Matthew Tkachuk was something special to cut the lead to 2-1. And then it got to a point where it was like the Panthers just aren't going to score again. But Tarasov's not going to give up another goal. He had 38 saves with still 7 minutes to go in the game. The performance from Tarasov was special last night. We'll get into that a little bit more in a minute when we break down some of the post-game quotes from some of the guys in the locker room after. He ended up with over 40 saves. His career high, funny enough, was 47. Do you know who it was against? It was against the Panthers back in 2022. Now he was doing it for the Panthers. He would go to the bench with 3:03 to play. And, well, Aaron Ekblad with maybe the best shot, I'm not going to say of his career, because yesterday I sat here and gave him all the flowers on Florida Panthers Daily. But the best shot of the season from Aaron Ekblad tied it up with just over a minute left in the third period. And it was like, well, here's the Florida Panthers we've talked about. You don't want to tank, but you know this team's going to fight till the end because that's just in this team's DNA. Again, we'll get to that a little bit later about this team's DNA. Aaron Ekblad, just a ripper to tie it up with over a minute left. And it looked like we were going to overtime. And, well, I mentioned it was in the waning seconds of this one. 3.8. 3.8 seconds left on this nationally televised game on ESPN. The Wild pick up a huge 2 points. The Panthers, at this point, I'm not going to be that guy because I'm still rooting for the Panthers to win, but I'm going to say thankfully don't pick up a point at all. They now work their way closer to that top lottery pick. We'll break that down next week on Monday here on Florida Panthers Daily. Make sure you subscribe down below. But I mentioned there was another injury in tonight's game because, of course, there was. It's the Panthers season this year. Evan Rodriguez broke his finger in last night's game against the Wild. 4 to 6 weeks, depending if surgery is needed. But regardless, season over. Evan Rodriguez down for the Panthers this year. It's just another nail in the coffin. It's not the nail in the coffin. It's another nail in the coffin because the Panthers season now at this point far gone and more players just keep going down. Hopefully we can get them all back for their start of the regular season next year and win 3 out of 4. Matthew Tkachuk, after the game, talked about the team not mailing it in. I mentioned we're not tanking. He said if we lose this culture, we're absolutely screwed. If we take the foot off the gas, then it shows them, the new guys, that it's okay. And it's not okay. So if we lose the culture, we're screwed, and we're not going to do that. That is why the Panthers are fighting every single night. And then I talked about Tarasov, the night he had for the Florida Panthers last night. Because it was, I'm not going to say historical, but for him, it was personal best, that's for sure. And he said after the game, we're just going to work until the end of the season. The fans come out every night, and they are incredible. And you know what? That's the funny part that I want to talk a little bit about this game. Because I've sat here and told you how ticket prices have been dropping. I've told you that here on Florida Panthers Daily, Monday through Friday. Subscribe button below. But Anthony LaPanta, the play-by-play guy for the Minnesota Wild last night, thought he was getting in a little cheap shot on the Florida Panthers. His quote on Twitter was, "Good to see all those die-hard, lifelong Florida Panthers fans that we've seen in public for the first time ever during the Stanley Cup Finals have gone back into hiding." That's because his picture showed that the game wasn't that crowded. And I want to zoom in on the time here. Okay, there was 14 minutes left in the period, so there were time for people to get back from the intermission. But let's relax. Let's calm down. I've sat here and talked on Florida Panthers Daily. If you haven't been to a Panthers game in a while because ticket prices have been expensive, now's your time to go. And they're going to come out here and say, it was a big deal on social media if you're on social media, but Panthers fans have shown up. We've shown up. That's why you're subscribing right here on Florida Panthers Daily, Monday through Friday. My social media is AJ Sheridan Radio. Because the last 2 years have been worth all the pain we've endured this year. And we still had a good crowd last night. And he's out here trying to take shots on us. And you know what? If the Wild make the Stanley Cup Finals, good for you. But it is dang hard to do it. It is dang hard to do it. You go ahead and keep taking your cheap shots at Florida Panthers fans because come a year from now, we'll be there with a real chance to win it, and I guarantee that. The last thing I'll say about tonight's game, Matthew Tkachuk had one last quote, and it was about Tarasov's performance. He said, "As frustrating as it is to lose like that, I'm more frustrated that we lost for him," talking about Tarasov. He put in an all-world effort for us tonight and kept us in the game. Well, it was a sad loss for the Panthers last night. Let's jump forward now to a weekend preview because the Panthers do got 2 games this weekend, both in the afternoon, going up against 2 teams from the Big Apple. The first one will be against the New York Islanders, who are fighting for a playoff spot, and then on Sunday will be what felt like a week or a playoff rematch, what should be a playoff series against the New York Rangers. Excuse me. On Sunday. So it's a fun weekend of hockey coming up for the Florida Panthers. The Islanders, again, are in contention, so you know they will give us the full fight Saturday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. Now let's move on to our Final Four, because if you have subscribed here to Florida Panthers Daily, if you are a follower here on Florida Panthers Daily, you know that we've been doing a March Madness style bracket. 1v1, Bob is in the net. Who would win? Shootout challenges. We've given you 4 regions of 4 teams. You guys moved on Marchand on Monday, Tkachuk on Tuesday. You moved on Sam Reinhart on Wednesday, and you moved Carter Verhaeghe on Thursday. So we have now reached the Final Four. You have Brad Marchand versus Carter Verhaeghe. Let me know in the comments below who wins that matchup. Brad Marchand, Carter Verhaeghe, and then Matthew Tkachuk versus Sam Reinhart. Those are the top 4 players that I expected to move on. I guess you guys thought it was going to be all chalk like it was in last year's March Madness before my Gators got knocked out this year. So again, let me know in the comments below here on Florida Panthers Daily. Matthew Tkachuk versus Sam Reinhart in a shootout battle with Sergei Bobrovsky between the pipes. Who would win that? Let me know. And then let me know Brad Marchand and Carter Verhaeghe. Who would win that matchup in a shootout battle versus Sergei Bobrovsky in between the pipes. I'll release our championship on Monday. We will have our winner on Tuesday right here on Florida Panthers Daily, but we couldn't do any of this without you guys. So go ahead, leave that comment below, subscribe below. Let's now jump, though. It's opening day. It was opening day yesterday in baseball. If you're a South Florida fan, I am. I like all sports. That's why I'm doing this here with you on Florida Panthers Daily, but I like all sports. And the Marlins will get their season underway tonight. Another South Florida team that, well, historically has been a word I'm not going to use here on Florida Panthers Daily. And I want to know, sure, the recency bias shows that the Panthers are the better franchise. But both teams have 2 rings. The difference is the Panthers have been there a few times. Whether it was making the Stanley Cup Finals and losing. Whether it was making the playoffs after winning the President's Trophy and losing. Whether it was back in the day with the Rats and not winning the Stanley Cup Final. The Florida Marlins, now the Miami Marlins, have only made the playoffs, if you count the COVID year, now 4 times. I don't count the COVID year because it was a really short season. In baseball, you need a full season. So they've only made it 3 times, but they've won 2 World Series. So Panthers fans, I'm asking you, here on Florida Panthers Daily, we go every single day, Monday through Friday, right here on YouTube, part of the Fan Arch community. Would you rather go to the Stanley Cup playoffs twice and win 2 Stanley Cups? Or go like the Panthers have a few times and make the championship, make the finals, and lose and still only have 2 finals? With the recency bias, I'm going to say the Florida Panthers because the last 2 years, if you've watched my first show that I ever did here just over a month ago on Florida Panthers Daily, said the last 2 years have been the most fun I've had being a fan of a team. But it's interesting. Both franchises have been known as a terrible franchise, with, again, except the past 2 years for the Florida Panthers. But both franchises have 2 championships. Makes you think. It makes you think. It's opening day for the Marlins. We'll be following those Marlins baseball. I will be. We won't be talking about it here because right here on Florida Panthers Daily, we talk Florida Panthers Daily. We talk Florida Panthers hockey every single day on Florida Panthers Daily. We'll be doing that on Monday, breaking down our 2 games from over the weekend. And until then, subscribe down below. Social media is AJ Sheridan Radio. Let me know in the comments down below again. Marchand versus Verhaeghe, Kachuk versus Reinhart, and let me know your thoughts about the Marlins versus the Panthers compared. Until Monday, I'm AJ Sheridan, Florida Panthers Daily. Let's go Cats.